But yeah, so here we are,
Here
and
we are. So much is arising.
so much is arising. We're here with our regal coats that we both got in South Africa. This is the Living Mucus Free coat,
Free. We are free.
free to be the queens of our hearts.
Yes, free to be the queens and to free the kings into their rightful place as well.
Yes. So where do we want to start with this? Because we've been chatting back and forth for weeks, and it's been this intense back and forth and arising and churning. And I know that
Yeah.
we're not the only ones. There's a lot of women for whom the sacred feminine is arising and this deep churning.
Yeah, I feel like what's most present for me is the feeling, the releasing the fear of feeling, releasing the fear of what we might call suffering, and
Mm-hmm.
to reframe what suffering, how it is a doorway to our greatest awakenings, and
Absolutely.
and to also talk about how we might know we are in the fear of feeling mode when we might think we are actually feeling our emotions, but we're actually not feeling the full range of our emotions, but we're still on the surface, and that there are signs that are very clear and things that we do when we are avoiding very difficult feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I myself have realized, only a few years ago, even though my work has been ongoing for 20 years, all of a sudden I realized I'm actually trying my hardest to bypass the deepest shit. There was a lot of stuff that I was working on, and it was good work, but it didn't get to the core of it. And when I realized that, it was the most shocking. I mean, I guess my awakening really came through iboga, and which is a sacred medicine, and that really ripped me open. Well, it's called cracking open the head, but it's because the head cracked open as you so called you lose your head and you drop into your heart. And when I dropped into the
Yes.
and I saw the blackness that I was still carrying, the suffering, the gunk, I was like, how is this possible after so many years of work? But there it was. And from then it was like, okay, now I got it. Well, I had no choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can relate to you. I feel that definitely life created such pain where I went to that darkness many times. And then also starting my spiritual journey because of the pain that was happening in my life, which was just a reflection of what was going on inside of me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was so much rupture in all of my relationships that it was just the rupture that I had inside from my own soul being literally like the soul outside of my body, and actually not even knowing that my soul was outside of my body until I had a really painful experience in a meditation where my soul came into my body, and it was the most painful experience as it re-entered. But then I thought, oh, that's probably the deepest suffering I'm going to feel. Like that was really
Mm-hmm.
hard. And then in sacred journey medicine with you, I realized what? Yes, I'll get that for you in a little bit. That, oh my gosh, there's a whole heap of emotions and memories that I completely blocked out. I had no access to them, and it was the medicine that took me there. And so this is, yeah, what you said. It's, I love how you just describe how you dropped out of your head, you got into your heart, and then into your body, because that is essentially where all of us need to be. That's where we feel the pain, is in our body. The mind can make up all sorts of reroutes, right, to get us out of the physical pain, but when we're forced to stay in it and we're locked in and you cannot escape, then you're forced to feel it, and then the feeling of it, that's when we heal.
Absolutely, yes. Like if there's that saying, I don't know who said it first, but if you can feel it, you can heal it.
Yes, yes.
And it's so true. You know, so often I thought that the healing comes through difficult techniques or, you know, methodology. And that's why I spent so many years running from healer to healer, methodology to methodology, course to course, and it would all help a little bit. I'd go like, okay, this is it. I found it. This is it. No more suffering. I'm done.
Yes.
And then it would wear off, and then it'd be like, why is this wearing off? You know, at some point, and sometimes it would take longer and sometimes it would take shorter, but eventually it would wear off, and sort of it would start to feel gritty again, and it would start to feel sticky again. And then the scrambling, because, well, that can't be happening. I did all this work. And eventually surrender to what is actually happening in the body. And like you said, what is happening in my surrounding experiences, and to have to look at that as, well, this is happening because it's a reflection of what's going on inside of me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I wanted to, I made a list of things that I've noticed over the years of, you know, working with private clients, but mostly this is me and my own family relationships that I've tried to just, you know, discern, okay, how do I know I'm in a moment of fear of feeling? And I wonder if I could share this list with you, and then we could talk about it and see if it resonates with you.
Yes, absolutely.
So the first one is the pattern of focusing on others and focusing on someone else's well-being constantly. That and as you know, teachers and healers, and as we do this very often, and sometimes it's easier to feel the pain of another before we are actually ready to feel our own pain. Yeah. And so this, we know we're trapped in that cycle if we're constantly looking on the outside to see who's suffering and how can I pray for them, who's suffering, how can I help them, who's suffering and how can I. And I did this for years. I was a yoga teacher, and I would be drawn to all of the people suffering in my class, and yet I still was not awoken to a lot of very primal fear and anger that was inside of me. But I was drawn to everybody else's fear and anger. And I know it was because I wanted in some ways to help myself and to feel it. But at the same time, I was drawn to them, but I was also repelled by them.
Yes. It's like, I'll help them because they are more in need than I am.
Which is the ego, yeah.
Completely.
And some sort of like numbing, like a bit of like a very innocent, an innocent ignorance, because I was innocently ignorant, right? I was helping, but I hadn't gotten to some really deep stuff. And I know that there's more. I don't think that I'm ever going to end, actually, because I'm on the journey. But now I know that, like, I can see when I get into that pattern of wanting to help another person. And then I realize, wow, I'm really energetically just drawn to them because there's something inside of them that is actually me.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's this, we are constantly mirroring each other. And that's where also I realized, when all these healers that would be there ready with open arms to heal me, and then they would sort of like wait for my breakdown.
Yes.
You know, like, okay, let's see, let's poke. Where can we poke her? And when is she going to pop? And then when I would pop and break into a million pieces, then it was like,
exactly.
Ooh.
Exactly. And they don't know how to, and they can't, that's exactly why the feminine, the softness, the fact that love is what heals. It's not when somebody can poke and provoke you till you totally crack, that's part of it. Like something does have to crack us open, but then we have to be in a space where we're being really so tenderly held. Otherwise we re-wound and we reclose and we calcify even more. And this is where the divine feminine, we need to learn how to be nurtured and mothered, because a lot of us here, I know on this group, our mothers weren't there for us in a soft, gentle, unconditional way. And so we're constantly, we need that. We really do need that.
Absolutely. Well, that's again, it's the sacred feminine, our mothers. I mean, I realize, you know, I've been blaming my mother my whole life, but actually I fully realized she also didn't receive what she needed. She certainly, I mean, already it's difficult for us to awaken the sacred feminine and to fully step into that. Never mind for them. So I have full compassion now that I am so deeply in it myself. I realized, oh my goodness, I remember my mother having little awakenings and then kind of squishing them and getting her power. In her case, she got her power from, you know, her work and from money and from being successful in the masculine way.
Yeah, and I wonder if your mother, can you hear me?
Yes.
I wonder, because my experience is that a lot of my mother's power came from actually my sense of suffering. She had I felt that whenever I would rise out of my suffering, she didn't really know how to relate to me. And then she'd find more things to be worried about, or she'd see things in my life that weren't going right. And she still does that. So the minute I would start to feel and reclaim myself, there was this, like, I need to put a lid on that because I can't actually be around your happiness. So there wasn't, and that's why I believe that when encouragement comes my way, is still in my life, or I hear someone that's rooting for me, like, yeah, I see it in you. I like something ignites in me. I'm like, that energy is so healing for me, because the other one is just like, it reminds me, well, they're not, now I know it's not because she, you know, she doesn't hate me, but there's a lot of self-loathing going on within herself, or anyone that can't really be around all of my range of emotion. And that is a sign that when we can't be, whether it's our parents or us, when we can't be with another individual and all their states of being and all of their range of motion, whether they're happy or sad or depressed or rageful or violent, like if we can't really sit with them in a like neutral way, if we're triggered in some way, then it just means there's more work for us to do.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So that is kind of this what we've been talking about, what we've been feeling, that there is so much bypassing around the subject of suffering. And you know, it's not just, there's no blaming, it's just rising for all of us. We all need to look at it. And we have been saying, we also have spent years of trying to bypass it in all ways and trying to see, well, actually, maybe it's not really necessary. Maybe, you know, and as we do with food as well, I've been trying to bypass living mucus free for years. And then eventually it's like, okay, this is the way. And then you surrender to it and you start seeing all the results. And similarly for me with the suffering, because as I'm saying it, there is so much shame to suffer.
Yes.
It's disgusting. To suffer is disgusting. It's weak. And I remember so often I was called weak, you know, from my brother, from my parents. And again, I'm not saying it with blame. I fully understand where they're coming from, because it's just entrainment.
Yes, and a lot of that suffering, I'm sure, from what you shared with me, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that because you were extremely sensitive and expressive, that you were expressing the feelings that they couldn't express. You were expressing all of that. So on the outside, it seems like you're so emotional and so sensitive, but really the energy that within a family construct, the energy of rage and sadness and depression, anxiety, it has to move. It cannot stay stuck, or somebody will die and burst. Like that will happen. But the in a way, like the most sensitive or the weakest link in the family will be the one that actually expresses it all, and then that's why we get sick.
Yes. Or we become the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
We become the drama queen of the family.
Yes.
Well, yes, I realized I was carrying everyone's stuff, and all the stuff that nobody was saying, it was just coming out of my mouth without,
yes.
you know, it's like,
yes.
it's just spitting out, and I couldn't help it. And then everybody, ooh, baddie, you know, and it's, this is still, even we are speaking to that, which many people don't want to speak to, and are going, you know, no to suffering. Suffering is not necessary. We can handle things differently. But the reality is, as we've experienced repeatedly, is and that's also where I think we need to talk about the fact that suffering doesn't need to be painful. I mean, it is painful, but it doesn't need to be dramatic.
Yeah, it's dramatic when there is shame or blame. Like, it's why I should just say, when there's suppression, that's when it becomes quite dramatic in the end, you know, like when it's suppressed, or like I said, somebody else will end up actually expressing it for you. So, you know, it's just that it's like when it's built up over years and years and years and years, and you're constantly suppressing it because someone says to you, just get over it. Come on, you're making such a big deal. Do you know that pain, that suffering is optional? Instead of validating it. And this is the importance of validation of all feelings, every feeling. And this is what I've learned in all relationship. If anybody tells me I'm suffering, I'm sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling whatever, the first thing to do is say, you know what, I'm sure you have a really good reason for feeling that. Tell me more about it. Like, that's what actually soothes all of us, is to be validated. And the thing is if we're not validating our own emotion, including our shame, when the shame comes up, do we then shame the shame, right? Or when the anger comes up, are we shaming? Oh, I shouldn't be angry about that. I want to be a good mom, right? So I shouldn't feel angry right now that my kid has these needs of me, you know, and I want to be able to support, and I want to be there. But every time we start to feel that shame, can we just validate, wow, I validate that I'm feeling some shame right now, and what does that shame need right now? And this is the tenderness of the feminine. We can't always be in challenge mode. We need to be, I mean, life is challenging enough, right? Like, I just feel that we need to soften, and we need to take time to be with ourselves. And you know, my journey didn't start with living mucus free and food. In fact, the food came like probably it was like the fourth thing that I started to integrate into my life. But the first thing that I needed was breathing, and it was the breath, and it was softness, and it was total relaxation that I needed in order to even get to the point where I could do really hardcore kundalini yoga, which tends to be in the exercises very masculine. There's like a feeling of masculinity, like just push through it and keep going and keep going, keep your arms up there and keep going. But there's no way I could have done that in the beginning. My nervous system was too taxed, and I needed first to get into my feminine practice. And that's why, like, for me, what I feel so inspired to share with everyone is time in the morning to do very simple breath work. And it doesn't have to be all like, let's get into this and let's just like be a warrior and keep soldiering through. No, it's like, can you just breathe through your left nostril for 6 minutes? And if you try that, what happens for you to just breathe through your feminine side for 6 minutes? And notice what comes up, because let me tell you, it's probably one of the hardest things to do if we're trapped in our masculine energy, but we won't know until we try.
Yes, I agree. It's the little practices. It's not the big, I mean, the big stuff can come later. was
Yes.
for me, my nervous system also, it was so frazzled and so kind of on the edge that any little thing would completely startle me. And I see a
Yes.
lot of people. I mean, that's where we see road rage, where we see anger outbursts that just sort of come seemingly out of nowhere. That's the nervous system. Judgment,
Yeah.
this judgment
Yes.
that comes up. That is all the nervous system that cannot handle the actual emotions that we are able to hold when our nervous system is calm. And then we can start softening, and then all these emotions start arising. And then, yes, there's suffering, but to me, it's a sweet suffering. It's this, it's not the, to me, there's two ways of crying. There's the crying of like, look how hard I'm crying. Look, I'm suffering, which
Yes.
is ego.
Yeah.
That's drama.
Yes. Yes.
I'm suffering. I'm in pain. That's ego. That's drama. That's actually not going into your feeling at all. That's going into your rage and crying out of rage, but actually bypassing your true feelings. Because when we're truly feeling, it's soft. Like, I feel my tears are so soft. And they literally, when I have those tears arise out of my body, it feels like golden nectar that drips into me and sort of softens me. And I actually feel so much gratitude. It's all orgasmic.
Yes.
And sure,
That's good. Oh, we probably can't do that. Yeah, I really love what you're saying, because it really resonates. There's a difference between that suffering that's like actually can be quite irksome to everyone around, because everyone around is like, oh my God, I cannot be around that, because no matter what I do for that suffering, it will never go away. That's the suffering that someone's doing, that is like, I want to stay in victim mode, and I've been there before, right? I want to stay in my victim mode, but I just want to let everybody know I'm suffering. And it doesn't matter what you
take it away.
Yes, somebody must just take it away, and I'm not going to take any responsibility for the way I feel, and I've played no part in it, in a way, and that's why it becomes so dramatic. And it's like that cry for love that will never actually be actually fulfilled, because it's repelling. It really repels people away, because it's not coming from a place of softening. It's actually a hardening. I'm so suffering that I'm going to come and I'm going to even attack you.
Yeah. It's a pushing outwards
versus
a softening inwards, and then from that and that to me is when, and we know that's when suffering becomes grace, because it really softens us. And to me, that's the beauty of the suffering, and that is the suffering that I do love. I don't
and I think that and when I met you, I was really, it really was the first time that I felt completely and utterly loved in all of my suffering. But I also felt it was exactly as you say. It was such a tenderness of my suffering, because I was just like, okay, I'm going to fall, and she's either going to catch me or not catch me, because I had been to coaches and healers and whatever, but it still wasn't how do I want to say it? There was still this feeling of like a masculine energy of like trying to show me and prove to me, if I just do this, I'm going to get better. If I just do this, and it was all about doing. And then by the time I, got Hashimoto's and this whole thyroid thing, I was so desperate that I couldn't, and I was so exhausted and fatigued that I had no energy. I was just like, I remember just being like a limp fish, like, just show me, Alex, like, I just show me the way. And like, I think in that, it wasn't even like, you didn't even have to show me anything. You just said to me, it's okay, just allow it.
Well, and that's
Just
the thing. You were exhausted, as I was
yes.
too, when I got sick with Hashimoto's. I was exhausted. The exhaustion came from not expressing who you were, what was there, and that you didn't need coaching to be told what to do. You just needed space holding so
Yes.
you could express, and in your expression, you found your own answers. I was mirroring.
Yeah, you were only mirroring. That's so good. Thank you for saying that. You never asked me any coaching questions. You never did any sort of technique. It was just feminine love. It was just,
Present.
okay, my love. Yeah, just presence, of a loving presence. And that is what actually helped me the most. Out of everything I've experienced is just loving presence. And that actually we can give to anyone. And but we can't give it to anyone if we actually haven't experienced it, Alex. I mean, that's the truth. Before I received that from you in relationship, I couldn't really give it to anyone that come to my studio.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still a textbook thing that I was doing. I still was doing meaningful work in the world and helping people, but it wasn't like now. Now, when I step into my classrooms or any session, I don't know, I feel more human. I feel connected to their humanness. I don't feel irritated by any of the things they say. To be honest, I haven't felt that trigger in a long time, but that doesn't mean to say it's not there. There's still things that need to be uncovered, but I can say that now I can hold a way more wider range, but it's because you held all of that wide range for me in with love.
And now you have the capacity for yourself, and therefore you can do it for anybody. I mean, it's that simple. It actually is. And I realize in many ways I learned so much by holding space for you. And that's the beauty of it. It was so perfect. And then from working with you, I worked with other women who also just sort of like shattered in front of me. And it was like, wow, what a blessing, because each time it was really there again. It was and of course there were little moments of uncomfortableness that I could feel in my body. It was like, oh my goodness, first of all, can I hold this? Like, is this, can I do this? But then to remember and to feel, where is this my stuff?
Yes.
And to then grow and drop it into, sort of inhale your stuff into myself and realize the fear or the, kind of rejection that I'm feeling is just a mirroring of my own stuff.
Yes, and I felt that from you. And what was great was that you were transparent. I remember you saying to me, because I could feel that you were afraid, but you were also, I could sense that you were up for the challenge to face the fear and work through it. And then I remember one time you just said, Misha, I am also afraid because this is very vulnerable now. And you are coming to me with a lot of deep stuff, but you said, but I'm learning how to trust myself. And that was wonderful because you didn't pretend, Alex. You didn't pretend to like have it figured out. You were just saying, I'm growing and learning equally. And that made me feel like I was in this co-relationship of healing with you. And that transparency just feels really good and really safe. And
well, and I think that is the new, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
That's okay. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I feel that this is the new way of relating, because we are all going where we haven't gone before. So it's like, if somebody wants to come to me and say, I figured it out, it's like, who are you to all figured out? Like, we're all going where nobody's gone before. And that we all have the capacity, for sure. And when we have the willingness coupled with the capacity that we all possess, because we are all super conscious, we have the capacity for super consciousness, then we can always, where there's love and where there's a will to figure it out, then yes, we can figure it out to say, okay, I want to, which that was my desire. I want to grow with you in deeper love. I want to know a deeper level of sisterhood. I don't want friendship. I want deep sisterhood, brotherhood, meeting soul to soul, vulnerability. Otherwise, it is not worth my time.
Yeah, and like, you know, we've talked about that before, that certain relationships can't go that deep, and it no longer becomes satisfying or fun or interesting or thought-provoking, or there's no more embodiment. You can't really embody if you're not going deep in a relationship. And I really want to experience embodied love. I don't want heady love. I don't want an intellectual love. I want it in my body, and I want and I want to be challenged. And that is, I think, love is such a high frequency, just like compassion is. I mean, it's a light and powerful frequency, but to put it in the body that's already, you know, like we've talked about, it's obstructed, it's pack jam, it's constipated, there's bacteria and literally shit in there. And like those higher frequencies can't even be in our body. And so, you know, to cry, to get to that point where you're in utter surrender and you're literally like crying tears and raging and screaming out of your mouth, like the top of your lungs, because you need to get that literally the shit and the lower vibration out. It's the only way for the love and the compassion to come in. So there is that, like, and maybe multiple times where you go through it, where what I've experienced, and I'll probably experience more, is that there are bouts of like deep pain and suffering, but the more we have, you know, we know how to breathe through it, we know how to talk through it, we know who to reach out to who's not going to re-wound us, you know, then it becomes easier and actually really fun.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, it's actually not then dramatic. If I think back to the retreat where, you know, I mean,
Yes.
there was one breakout after the other, and some lasted
Yes.
longer, some were shorter, but there was a lot of intensity from all of us. And yet it was beautiful. It didn't feel like, ooh, such drama, there's so much happening. It didn't feel tense. It was fluid. There were tears, there was joy, there was deep pain, and then there was release, and there was celebration. So it kind of felt more like, the image that I was getting is like, it's like when you do an enema. I mean, yes, you have moments where it's painful and you're sitting there, and when you're releasing, it's not pretty, it's not easy, but you know you're releasing. And
Yes.
you feel nauseous, and moments where you think, ooh, maybe I'm going to pass out now. So yes, it's not easy. There is some level of suffering, but it's sweet suffering because you know the shit's leaving.
Yes, and you're also going into it with a consciousness of, I'm going to consciously go into my pain now. And when we practice Kundalini yoga and we do, let's say, a meditation for 62 minutes, I know that I'm going to go in and I'm going to meet that part of me that wants to resist all feeling of pain and suffer. And in my body, in my mind, like, I don't want to go there. Just like when I sometimes do the sacred medicine of mushrooms, I can feel myself, I do not want to eat that mushroom. I do not want to drink that San Pedro because I feel gagging. I don't want to do it. And then I'm like, okay, Misha, just, you know that you're doing this to go in. And then the more we meet it and greet it consciously, it's like it loses its like its grip on me. It's just like, okay, this is just another layer of consciousness that I know I'm going to get to, and I have to go through the gateway of some pain, but on the other side of that, I'm going to feel through it, and on the other side is going to be a great gem.
Absolutely. That's the thing. We have to get, so now also I see whenever there's suffering or shit coming up, it's like, ooh, yay, where is the gold? You know, so it's like you have to
Yes.
dig into the shit to dig for the gold. But also, as you were speaking, what's coming up for me is, I think a lot of people, they don't want to go into the suffering because they think it's their suffering.
Oh yeah.
You know, It's their
Yes.
shame that's coming up. It's their shit that's coming up. Whereas I no longer see it as my. It's
Yes.
stuff that it's stuck to me through unconsciousness, through ancestral, stuff, and just through being a human alive in this body. But to also trust that every single, because I do think there's a lot of shame in revealing that, ooh, this is my suffering, this is the source of my
Yes.
suffering, which then so often also seems so kind of trivial and little,
Yes.
when we take it out. But what for you can be a huge gaping suffering, for me can be kind of nothing.
Exactly.
But it's not the point. The point is that it's the perfect suffering that you needed and I
Yes.
needed to push us into a certain direction that otherwise we would never have been pushed into.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I believe. This is really my firm belief, and I don't think I'll ever sway, but all emotion needs to be validated, even if it is a dramatic, even victimhood. Like, in a way, that victimhood will eventually peter out. And it's not like every time somebody cries to me like something's wrong, I'm going to validate it. But there's a part of me that's like, you know what, they're just not done yet with that cycle yet of victimhood, and I'm not going to try to push them out of victimhood if they're not ready for it. Because guess what, if coming out of victimhood means that they're going to be pushed into their pain, but they're not yet held in a really loving way, and they don't have the support, it can re-injure more.
Absolutely.
And so I don't feel like I want to push into somebody's face like, well, you're just in victimhood, or not even, or just choosing not to validate it. I want to validate it, and I sense into myself, I'm like, I'm sure there's a good reason why that's there. And the more you say, I'm sure that's a good reason why that's there, and I'm sure that there's a good reason why that's there, that person releases that resistance to just feel the utter like pain of it, because it's still, when you're talking about your pain, you're not feeling your pain.
Exactly. There's a bit.
You're gonna talk. Yeah, you're gonna talk about it. But it's really a personal thing, and everybody's gonna get to that really tender place. And I'm talking about it right now, and I feel it in my gut. It's like it's so deep, and like you say, it's more like it's like pure exhaustion. Like, I don't even have words anymore. And by the time I got to you, that's basically where I was at, because I was so exhausted trying to like tell people about my suffering. Instead, you would just say, my love, just keep crying. Just keep crying. And you guided me into my body through my suffering. And now I can do that for others. And I no longer try to challenge anybody when they're in a difficult emotion, because I know that they don't need more challenging. They just, in the suffering, we just need to allow it and allow deeper, until the whole thing just starts to relax, and the body can totally relax.
And
it's so important.
You got so soft, because I remember when I first met you, your whole face was so hardened and kind of
Yes.
scrunched up. And now,
Yes. Jaw was really locked.
yes, it is so open and radiant and soft, but so powerful. You have so stepped into your power through your softness, because that's the thing. When we are super bendable and soft, we cannot crack. Nothing can crack us.
That's right. That's right. They say that water is the most powerful substance because it's just constantly flowing. And it can freeze when it gets cold, but the moment there's warmth, it melts. The ice melts with warmth.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And it returns into its flow. And I feel more and more into the importance of that, the subtlety. It's just so much power in the subtle feminine energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also like recognizing that there's so many ways into this awakening, and some people do need to go first through the mind, and some people do need to go through the body, and some people go through it with food, and some people come to it through yoga. Some people have an accident and they fall off of a building, and my dad fell off of a two-story house, and you know, there was a moment when his leg was so shattered and I felt him cry, and for the first time, and I saw him, but he wasn't, you know, he wasn't surrounded by a lot of warm spiritual energy where he could be held in spirit. It was still like there was still a lot of fear around him. So sometimes we're ready to crack, but guess what? We don't have a community around us yet, and I'm sure it's just because we're not ready yet to go to the deepest part of our wounding. And well, I just believe that when the soul's ready, the soul will go there when we're feeling safe enough, when we feel safe. That's the key. And that's what you were talking about yesterday about the root. And for so many years, I felt so ashamed. I knew instinctively that my root chakra was, you know, the most ruptured in my whole system, because I immediately turned to chakra books when I was going through my spiritual awakening. I still couldn't like trust a human being. I could only trust what I read. And somehow those books is what got me through it, those chakra books, because it talked about the shadow side of every single chakra. And I could read about shame and insecurity, and I could read about it and realize, oh, I'm not alone in this. There's people that have documented this and they're writing about it. And wow. And I felt safe in my books. I slept with my books, Alex, before I could open myself to a being. I slept with my chakra books because to me, there was like golden information in there. And there is where I read that, oh, it's okay if you don't feel safe and secure. It just means that your root chakra is ruptured, and there are things that you can do to help that. And so I taught myself, because to be honest, I didn't want to rely on another human being, because every time I would open myself, I would do exactly what you said. I would open, and then they would be like, whoa, that's way too much. You're getting way too sensitive. You are way too emotional, lady. You're crazy. You're so crazy. Oh, you're so crazy and you're too much. And I was like, fuck it, I'm done with human beings. I'm so tired of human beings because they don't know how to be around me, and I keep pushing them away from me. And I know I've talked to other people in this group that have said the same thing. Like the minute I open my mouth, I feel like I repel people, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't open myself anymore. So I just decided I'm going to myself. I'm going to study up, and I'm going to read about it. And I was obsessed with those books. And now, you know, little by little, it's not so much in my head anymore. I don't have to sleep with my books. I wake up and I do my breath work, and I do my body work, and I take time to do my mantra, because the mantra helps me get my voice. And so many people have this aversion even toward mantra, and it's okay, because I realize they're maybe not yet ready for that kind of vocalization, or they're tuned into something else. But I do know that when someone can allow themselves, just like, you know, surrendering to fruit and surrendering to an enema and surrendering to the 62-minute mantra, that it's hard at first. You know, like, why am I doing this? This just doesn't even seem like it's natural. But there's so much trauma in our body and so much backed up, you know, energy in our throat, that in order to stand, you know, firm in what we believe in our path, we do have to have a voice, and we do need to practice our vocal skills. But in relationship, if you're never validated, you're having a hard time validating your own voice. That's a way for us to hear our voice, reclaim our voice, and actually reclaim our emotions. Because you're right, it's not my pain or my sadness or my anger, but in the beginning, when you're coming out of deep numbness, there does need to actually be I am angry. I'm feeling angry, God damn it. And I have a right to be angry. I am feeling sad right now, and I'm going to feel sad until I need to feel sad. It's like that reclamation. That is what brings the aliveness back into the body. That for me was the beginning of embodiment, is saying, I feel this and I have a right, and I validate it.
Yes. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
that then often is lacking, you know, which I realized for me after years of numbing myself down and only focusing on the light, only focusing on the love, only focusing on the
Yeah.
chakras, because the lower stuff is kind of, you know, that's the, we don't need that kind of stuff. We only need to
Totally.
here.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I'm wondering, why am I not feeling my fire? Where is my
Yes.
fire? I felt so, and it's still, I mean, that's what I'm working on. And that is the sacred feminine rising, but the fire, and it's no different for men. As we
Yes, I agree with you. Yes.
no different with men. And that's where, you know, if you're listening to this, when you're listening to this and you think, oh, well, this is not me, we are all going through this. Because what I've noticed is that whether I speak to the people here that I do the community work with in, you know, a little town where it's all colored people and black people, and they're not exposed to all of this work, and yet guess what? They're going through the same stuff. That has
Yes.
amazing to witness. And whether I speak to people, you know, in America or in Italy or whatever, we're all going through the same stuff. We may not have the
Yes.
same language to explain
Yes.
it, but it's all about, it's the sacred feminine that is rising. And the point is, it's not just rising in us women,
That's right.
it's rising because we all are. And I mean, we know, and we've been speaking about this, I know I was in my masculine for so many years. I was so masculine, and so were you were in your harsh masculine, and the feminine was
Yes.
whooshed, and
Totally.
hardness that kept it all together.
Yes.
But now it's about, now we are merging, the inner marriage has happened.
Yes, it is. It is happening. And also I think the more that women wake into this feminine, we can help men, awaken their feminine inside, and also help their feminine. If a man is particularly more feminine, that their masculine can arise. And as the woman releases her tendency toward the masculine and she comes more into her feminine, then she can that naturally allows the man to come more into the masculine energy, which he wants to feel as well, but still with the softness there too. And it's that inner marriage. It's the sun and the moon. It's 50-50 with inside. And I feel that is for me, that is abundance. Like when I think of how I can create more outer abundance, whether it's prosperity or just reaching more people that I want to reach with my work, it's me reaching all of my own self. And that inner sun, the inner moon is constantly like coming together in a harmonious way. Then I'm better able to attune to what someone might need on the outside. And the first person that I always serve on the outside is my daughter. It's super important to me that I can tune into when I'm being too challenging for her, or when I'm being too soft, and yeah, with my sweetheart. And it shows me, because some of us are single moms, right? And there isn't a father there, and it's that's a reality. That's something that we have to also be with. And for any of us that are single dads or single moms, it can really help to tune into what that is. And why it's like, I just keeps coming to me is just chanting. Like there's so many mantras that can tune the feminine and tune into the heart energy. And even when you do a mantra with a whisper, like there are ones where you're just saying sa, ta, na, ma, and you're whispering it. It's like it activates this heart center, that when you're chanting something in sa, ta, na, ma, you feel it. So these very simple practices, they're really, it's not about a teaching, but it's just about getting an experience and allowing all of those elements inside of us to arise and to awaken.
That's right. That's so important to say, that it's not a teaching per se. It's the body, just as with the whole living mucus free system, also the teaching itself is very simple. It is so basic that, you know, in an hour I can explain it to everybody and then they could go off and do it themselves. But it's the complexity of the taking the teaching and then adapting it, following it in the body.
Yes.
Then becomes your teaching. Your body will teach you, which is
absolutely
why I also love Kundalini yoga so much. And I resisted Kundalini yoga, and you know, there's still a part of me that resists it. But every single time that I come back to the practice, it's like, oh, why am I resisting this? Same thing with the food also. You know, I mean, now that for me, there's no more resistance with the food, but initially there was this back and forth. And yet every single time that I went back to living mucus free, it was this, oh, I'm home. This feels so good. Why am I resisting it? And it's a very similar feeling with Kundalini yoga. Whether it's a short practice or a long practice, I always go, oh, this feels, not
yes.
I think, it feels good.
Yes,
what state I'm in after the practice, whether I've done a short breathing exercise, a meditation, a fire breath of 1 minute, I can feel in my body the difference. And that's the only thing that matters.
Yes, because it's specifically working with the nervous system, the glandular system, and the lymphatic system. And so when those systems are functioning, the mind, the brain, you don't have to, like, you know, you don't need to listen to somebody teaching. You don't need to listen to what anyone is saying on the outside. You just know. It
arises from within.
It arises from within, and you're not seeking to be satisfied from the outside. You don't need anything, but from that place of not needing anything. I don't need food, I don't need love, I don't need somebody to tell me they love me, but at the same time it allows to go into the relationships of all people or food or whatever in a way that it awakens more subtlety, which means there's more intimacy, and it does awaken in relationship whatever still needs to come up and through, but all of a sudden you're able to put words to it now because somehow the words just appear. That's the great thing about it. You just all of a sudden you have this. Well, for me, I would always get into relationship and then try to speak when I would get triggered, but it would come out all wrong, and I would literally, like, I would create more problems the minute I would speak. And so that moving of the energy with the mantra, you know, if anyone is here on this group that experiences this, that, you know, that chanting can help to bring more projection, more clear projection, but in a loving way. So that way it's a mature conversation, and the conversation opens more heart energy instead of more walled up energy. And so yeah, the practice, well, it shifts the relationship to ourself through our body, and then it just changes relationships immediately.
Completely. I'm just quickly looking, because Gary was saying, where's the live? And I said it's in the group, and he's like, yes, but there's no links. So I don't know if it's live streaming. I mean, either way, we're recording it, and after after we are done, I can you know, put it up. But that's so weird. Like I did everything as I was told to do. Anyway, doesn't matter. They're gonna listen to it later. Well, let's go and speak, because we said, we wanted to speak about sisterhood. I've got all the stuff that we wanted to speak about here.
Great.
So yeah, we wanted to speak about sisterhood and how that's also, I feel, is also changing. So this whole thing of the concept of friendship is changing. Like friendship, you know, what is friendship? I mean, it's nice to like hang out and, you know, discuss kind of thing, but actually either we are communing in a deep, meaningful way, especially when we are on a path of growth, or otherwise, if we're just conversing, you know, over for the sake of conversing and for the sake of spending time, that's too little. And
Yes.
me, the richness, this incredible richness, and I mean, I've been waiting for sisterhood literally for 44 years. I realized I've been looking for this my whole life. And I've been asking myself, why is this not happening? You know, like, don't other women also want this? Like, I don't want to go out for ladies' night. I don't want to go out for a glass of wine. I want to go.
Yes.
I want to meet you. And whether you are my friend or my lover, I want to meet you. And then whatever arises, because that's actually the thing, as I'm saying it, what's coming to me is I want to meet you and I want to love you and know you. And I want you to reflect back to me whatever arises for you, like whether that's good, positive, or bad, negative. It's like, give it to me. I want to interact, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And if that's not there, then like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and it's all I think about the willingness to be vulnerable. It's like if I can't let myself go to my dark shadow and my suffering, I can't really reveal to you in a vulnerable way. If I can't let myself show you, I am completely suffering right now and I don't know, could you help me? Like, I'm not sure that that could really be created if there's just no vulnerability. I mean, vulnerability is the key.
Absolutely. But then, because, you know, like we've been talking so much about suffering, and then, you know, people who don't know, it may look like, oh, well, all they do is suffer. But actually,
yes, I know.
what has happened, and the same thing happened on the retreat, is that the deeper we went into the suffering and the deeper we were able to hold our suffering, the deeper, well, the higher the joy.
That's right. Right. That's right. Absolutely. And you have to get over that. It's like the vulnerability comes up, right? Because it's like, ooh, maybe I can actually let myself feel something that I typically freeze within myself. Maybe this group of people, or maybe this relationship is actually safe, and maybe I can go there. And then I can feel like there was a time where I was on retreat and I could feel it. Like I needed to share, but I was petrified. I was terrified of sharing. And then I just realized I did not come here to stay the same. I came here to change. I came here, I want to grow. So I better do whatever the opposite of my comfort zone is. I better open my mouth and say exactly what is there.
Yeah.
And it was that sharing that actually allowed, you know, for me, my greatest fear has just been with men. Like with women, I don't think I've struggled as much, but with men. And it was so interesting because after I did that, I had every man that was on that retreat came to me. They were the first ones to come to me actually and give me a hug and tell me how beautiful it was and how safe I was. And they came to me and comforted me. They held me, and it was exactly that. I needed to be vulnerable, so I knew I could have the firsthand experience of being held in this beautiful masculine energy, and it healed things in an instant. Like I was like, wow, like they're here for me, and I can be that vulnerable. I love your eyes. Yeah, so it's vulnerability, but if I wouldn't have taken the plunge into that scary place, Alex, that would have never come to me.
Yes. So it's the need, and I feel very much the way to come into this new wholeness that is beckoning all of us. It's not anymore about teachings. It's not anymore about concepts, but it's about participation in the now.
Yes. Yes.
So as you participated in the now, and I remember that moment when it was like, oh, should I? And then, yes, I participate. And in the participation, you beckoned the healing that you needed.
Yes.
And you received it in the moment, in that instant, and then boom, it was done, because it was an embodied physical experience. It wasn't a
Yes, exactly. That's right. That's right. Simone, if you want to come sit next to me. Come sit next to me. Yes, it physicalized it. And I think that's like, it's the healing in relationship. I find a lot of times in my own journey too, I was first needed to focus on myself and my focus to God. Like basically, I remembered like thinking to myself, oh, I should be focused on relationship with men because that's where I'm really wounded, you know, like that's where my wounding was feeling like it was coming up. But really at that time, I just needed to, it wasn't about relationship. I needed to keep that channel open in my body to keep receiving and believing that the divine was with me, because I felt so alone. I felt so alone, and I would pray for God to just come, and because I knew God was there, like intellectually, but I didn't know how to feel the infinite in my body. And that I believe does require, it requires some sort of body work, whether you get it through the, you know, detoxing, or you do yoga, or you do something where you're consciously, you're not just running to run, like, because I used to do that too, right? I'd just go for like 3-mile runs and I would just run. But I wasn't calling in spirit, but when I really was intentional, and I'm like, look, I know the spirit exists, but I don't feel spirit. I don't feel spirit, and I want to feel spirit. And then I said, okay, great, if I'm going to run, I'm going to run straight to God. If I'm going to breathe, I'm going to breathe straight to God. If I'm going to eat this fruit, I'm going to eat my fruit to all the way to God. And little by little, then it was like, oh, I had the experience of God. And now I want to share this with my child, and I want to share this with my partner. And then that in itself is another new awakening, because all of a sudden I have to like get triggered. Now you're like getting into my space, and this relationship is so triggering me right now. And you're saying things that like my mother says and my father says and everything, but I don't want to experience God just by myself. I actually want relationship that is going to grow me even more toward God. And so yeah, like being on retreat, it was a practice for me to be with men, with women who are detoxing, who are consciously going into their wounding, and it feels safe, and then I can practice relationship skills, and then that's like another step beyond. It's like, okay, I connect to myself now, I connect to God, and now I want to connect with others.
Yes. Yeah, that was for me also such a big learning, to really be in embodied divinity. I mean, that was what we experienced for that whole week. And then at the end,
Yes.
we all came to the realization we created utopia. I mean, that was how Utopia Rising came about, is because it was a true inner arising. It was like, oh my goodness, we are living utopia.
Exactly. It was so delicious.
It was. And the joy, I mean, for me, the joy, there were times I remember I would need to kind of like steal myself away quickly into the kitchen, into the bedroom. Was like, there is so much joy. What do I do with this joy?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it was almost shameful.
Oh, that joy brought up shame. Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That resonates. Yeah.
You know, it was almost like, ooh, hang on,
Yeah.
let me compose. And
Yes.
by the end of the week, I mean, this was like the first few days, because it felt like they were just these waves. It was waves of depth, and then waves of joy, and so that is life. You know, I mean, we did life for 1 week. We lived utopia, as I feel it should be. That is how I imagine it. That is exactly. So I got to actually live fully every single moment what I think, what my version of heaven is.
Yes, because in that space, everything was allowed, and everything was encouraged, and everything was loved, and everything was validated. There was no resistance to anything.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was what created it.
Okay.
What?
No, and therefore nothing was a problem. And it was
Yes.
this incredible flow. I mean, there was this flow that we all marveled at. And that was the divine flowing through us in all its expressions.
That's right. That's right.
We weren't giving preference to one expression over another.
That's right. That's right. Yes. 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 And that's I feel that's when the flow returns, and the brightness, the glow in our skin, our smiles, they're genuine, our tears are genuine, they're pure, there's a purity, there's an innocence, there's the support of the masculine energy inside of us, there's the tenderness of our feminine. We can flow. We know we're learning how to hold ourselves in what was needed, then we could hold others in what's needed. And then that's when it becomes so like instinctual, like, oh, that's just coming and I need to do that. And that's why I think in the end we were like, okay, this isn't about a practice or a teaching, because we're just feeling, and all of our feelings and emotions and ideas and whatever it's all can be there. And I mean, wow, what a gift.
Yeah, we realized this is the new way of being. And it's not a new way of being because we decide, because there was no decision.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a true, authentic arising, which means for me, and that is how I've always tracked kind of, what is the zeitgeist? Where are we evolutionary wise going? Because I truly feel like I have no preference, just as I had no preference of what diet is going to heal me. I didn't give a shit. If it was going to be meat, I'll eat meat. If it was going to be bone broth, I was going to eat bone broth. If it was going to be fat,
yeah.
So I was ready to do whatever. There was no dogma that I preferred.
Yes.
But it was through truly feeling my way through it, and then, oh, okay, this is what feels good. This is what's healing my body. And then that's how we find truth.
It is. And what just came to me is that in the beginning, it is important, I think, where we're at just in our humanity right now, in terms of like shedding a lot of stuff that's not true and toxicity out of our body and our mind, that in the beginning, when we go to those places, it does feel safer when we have a very clear structure of a practice. Like when you get up in the morning, you do your enema, and when you're done with your enema, then you wait 3 hours, and then you have your fruit. Like it's like dogma or teaching or structure, because we have to have that framework from which to explore a brand new way of being. It's the masculine that's holding us so we can have this like emotional experience, right?
Yes.
But after a while, those outer structure of the masculine doesn't actually need to be there anymore. And so, my was yoga nidra and kundalini, and they're very specific like protocol or way of teaching, which for me was excellent in the beginning. And now, as I'm more comfortable with my own feelings and experience and my soul voice, I have it within me now. But those outer teachings, or even like going to Yogi Bhajan, like I remember I would just say, well, what does Yogi Bhajan say about that? And what does Yogi Bhajan say about the nervous system? What does Yogi Bhajan say about my first lower 3 chakras? What does Yogi Bhajan say? I want to know what Yogi Bhajan says, because I trust him, because this technology he's given us works. So it works. And I've met people in the community that are really awesome. I want to know what he says. But then after a while, I realized I don't need to know what Yogi Bhajan says. I feel it inside myself. And in fact, he would always say that like, don't listen to me. I just want you to get up in the morning and do some breath work, and you're going to know. You're going to, know. And of course, like I came to realizations by just fasting. I didn't even have to do breath work. I fasted. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I have this pattern of forcing people to do things, and I have this way of being that's like very forceful, and I'm forcing everybody. And then I realized that in a fast, and then, you know, of course it was affirmed. My daughter one time just said to me, seems like you're forcing me. And Ram Kiran said the same thing to me. I feel like you're just forcing me. Stop forcing me. And then I realized in my fast, oh my God, I'm forcing people to do things. But that's because I was forcing myself to do things. And then I realized, you know what, this practice that I love so much, I even feel like I'm forcing myself to do this practice. And I'm not meant to actually do this practice right now. I'm meant to just sleep in the morning, you know? And so all of that to say is just, like, our teachings are really good, and I think at a certain point, some of us may find it beneficial to just be like, I'm going to just let those teachings go. They're there. They're inside me. I believe in them, but I'm going to keep finding my own way.
Yes, which is the same thing with the food. That's where I always say, follow the protocol up until a certain point, but then kind of find your own rhythm, and then come back, find your own rhythm, because that is when the teaching becomes real, and then it becomes a lifestyle. And then it becomes just a new way of being instead of some dogma that we follow, which is so easy.
Yes.
So I wanted to, before we close, I wanted to speak about, what was the last thing here? Oh, well, living a life of service and rising together.
Yes.
I'll let you go first.
Well, I feel that once now that I've done some really deep, difficult work, and I've done it in a safe community, which really has been Living Mucus Free, and there's some Kundalini yoga community that I feel the same way about, but that there's only one thing left to do, and that's to serve.
Yeah.
It's like, that's actually, and that's where my greatest joy really comes, is seeing others transform, and knowing that, you know, whatever suffering that or unconsciousness that I went through, it can actually be of service. And this now creates just this wide global awareness of what's out there, and how much fear is out there, and how we have a duty. We have a duty. This is what I believe, and I believe all humans feel that we have to serve others, and we need to come out of, slowly we need to find our way out of our ego, because there's nothing that we have to prove. We don't have to prove anything. We really just need to feel, and what we learn here and there we share, but not because we're trying to help anybody or teach anybody, because then that takes away even their suffering or their experience of going to God. It's more about service to me is believing in the other person, in their wholeness 100%. And I don't need to even say anything. All I need to do is hold it in my center. I see the wholeness in them, and I'm going to trust that whatever comes out of my mouth, whether it hurts them or helps them, is going to support them. And at the same time, every time I know I hurt somebody, I do feel the responsibility to go inward and say, how did I perhaps, in my desire to serve, how did I play a part in that? And how could I maybe, how am I hurting myself or rewounding myself? That's important. If I somehow hurt somebody or push somebody away, I want to do a little bit of self-inquiry and say, how come I couldn't, what was it about that interaction that made a sever happen? Because I think there wasn't enough, maybe even vulnerability or transparency on either side, but how can I do better next time? Because I want to honor when someone walks away from me. I want to honor what's happening. So that's what I need to say. It's just it's a constant thing that I'm always with, because I think there's a tendency to say, oh, well, that's just their problem. That has nothing to do with me. They're offended. They just, left the studio. I mean, I had somebody that just decided I don't want to come to the studio anymore. And she didn't really tell me why. Okay. She didn't like, but my first instinct was to be like, that's just them. That has nothing to do with me. They're just like going through their own thing. But then I realized there's something not, I need to ask. And so what I did was I called her and I just said, you know, I really care. If there's something that maybe I might have said or done that somehow triggered you, would you be willing to share with me? And that's for me, like, I want to serve, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm for everyone. I'm not trying to play nice, and I'm not even trying to get her to come back to the studio, but I was able to receive information that I needed to, yeah, like I was actually doing what she was saying to myself. And it basically was just like, I was still skimming the surface. Like she still was saying like, I want to go deeper. And I thought I was going deep. So anyways, yeah, service is just keep learning. In the service, I keep learning.
Yes, that's beautiful. I so agree. I mean, that is what I feel also. It's this dedication to the service because of the learning that comes through the service. And
yeah,
it's not just the learning, but it's the pure joy of seeing people transform and seeing and for me, really, the biggest learning has been to see that we are all so the same. You know, we think we're so, and of course we're all unique, absolutely, and that's also so beautiful. And what I always want to bring out, and it's like, okay, give me your uniqueness, your unique perspective, because it's a unique splinter of the divine I want. But at the same time,
yes,
we're so the same in
that's
our
right.
feelings and vulnerabilities and basic desires and also arisings ultimately. So yeah, I love being in service, and in many ways it feels like by being in relationship with you, my love for service actually has deepened, because you do serve so beautifully. And then I see the reflection of myself in you, which elevates me further. You know, so that's also for me the beauty, that when we are reflected truly in our vulnerability in one another, it's not just that we receive joy like this, but the joy starts spiraling upwards. It becomes,
Yes,
multiplies.
it does.
And so the
Yes,
joy that I see in you makes me joyful, and then because and so it goes, and so, you know, this is like it's the upward spiral. And for me, that is how we rise together, in this
yeah,
knowing that we don't need to do it alone anymore. We have
yeah,
each other. We can reach out to people. We can reach out in sisterhood, in brotherhood, in one big family. And obviously that's like my, you know, Aquarian, what is it, idealistic, you know,
yeah.
but it is the Aquarian age after all.
It sure is. You're an Aquarius in the Aquarian age.
Right?
And you can have it just the way you want. That's right. It's your time, sister. It's our time.
I can
And
have it
it's,
just the way I dream it. Well, that was the mantra, which, you know, I feel like these arisings that come, they're also there. They come through us, but they're not even for us. They're actually, and I see that all the time, you know, it's not even for me. It's to be given. It's to be served to others. What arises in me is not for me. It comes through
yes,
me for others. And then on the other hand, so often I feel like I, for me, know nothing. I know
yes,
for others, but I, for me, know nothing. And where do I get my, obviously I'm exaggerating, but I get my fill from the reflections of the mirrors that I choose.
well, yeah. And that's the thing, is that you and me, like, okay, you're Alex, I'm Misha, but we're not the doers. We're not, so you don't know anything. I don't know. Alex knows nothing. Misha knows nothing. This is just a figment of our, like, of our societal imagination. But
Yeah.
like when we're clear and our vessel is more clean and clear, and we go and we commune with the sacred medicine, or we commune with food, or we commune with our breath, the spirit comes through and gives the words that we need to say. And I think a lot of times our ego, or our Misha or our Alex, say, oh, well, who are we to actually put this message out into the world? Because I'm just little Misha and I'm just little Alex. But that's not actually realizing it, that it's not Alex and it's not Misha, and it's not our names, or it's not our ego. It's just that, you know, because the other day I did sacred medicine and it just kept coming to me, allow love to heal you, allow love to heal you, allow love to heal you. And I sat in it and I was just like, and it was so blissful. It was like, and I just woke up the next morning and I just said, allow love to heal you. And that's just been my mantra, is allow love to heal you, that it doesn't have to be food or meditation or anything. It's just allow love to be your healer. And that wasn't Misha doesn't say that. That's spirit saying it.
Completely, yes.
And
yes.
I am surrendering. I'm obeying to God's message, spirit's message, and I'm just saying, okay, great, I'm just going to deliver the message. But I'm nobody special. I'm very special like you are, but I'm nobody special at the same time. And I'm no different than anybody else.
Yes, we all, and that's why we all need each other. That's why, because we all are messengers of God, but we will have a different message.
That's right.
When the message comes together, that is when the upward spiraling, you know, that's what we experienced again at the retreat, where everybody there was God's messenger. And we saw each other as that. And then it became this kaleidoscopic, utopic experience of just pure, joyful, innocent bliss.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is
And that,
higher.
yeah. And I think that's like, well, when our vessel is more clear, we just have more access to it, and it flows through us effortlessly. But when there's like so much effort in trying, then we know it's not really, like, it is the ego of Misha, the ego of Alex that's trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that kind of efforting work. We can just, we can soften and just let it come through, you know?
Yes, we are. Yes, exactly. We are perfect as we are. We just allow everything to flow through us. The good,
just
the bad.
flow. Oh, it feels so good.
It does. It does.
So good. Oh, Alex, thank you so much for this talk. I've appreciated this time with you.
Thank you. I loved it. And yeah, it seems like it didn't live stream, but anyway, I'm gonna post it now. It's so odd. It's at the same time the other. Anyway, I'll figure it out.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Misha. And well, we'll see you as usual on the page with your beautiful yoga and your beautiful messages. I love you so much.
Thank you. I love you too. Bye.
Bye. Oh, here.